Welcome to Backwoods Pursuit and part 2 of this elk call review series. Here in part 2 we're going to look at some external reed calls or bite and blow elk calls. These are cow calls, of course. We're going to look at some from Rocky Mountain Game Calls, native By Carlton, as well as Phelps. We got a bunch of calls to go through here, and as always, if you like our content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and jump over to our website, backwoodsPursuit.com, where if you want one of my gear review worksheets to help you dial in your own backcountry gear work list, just subscribe and become a Backwoods Pursuit Insider, and you'll get that in your inbox. Let's go take a look at some of these calls. Alright, before we get started here, I'm going to talk about a couple of the differences that you might see or that you might notice with some of these calls as we go through them. These are, of course, bite and blow calls, and this one here you can see has a lot shorter reed to work with than the native or any of the others, really, and it's a lighter, easier to use type of a call. Of course, the native here, the native custom, and the Phelps EZ Estrus are similar in their length, but the reed itself is a little bit different. I don't know if you can see that really well because it's black on black on the reed with the Phelps call there, but the diaphragm or the width here of that reed is wider than on this guy or on that guy. So those all affect the sounds as well as the width here of the mouthpiece. This one's a little bit wider, it's a little bit narrower, and that's narrower yet. So depending on what fits your mouth best, you want to consider each of those things, but they all do affect the tone. The other thing that really affects the tone on these is what's used as far as a material. A wood tone, or wood here, is going to offer you a little softer, more mellow tone. More of an acrylic or a plastic is going to be a little more, give you a little more volume a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times. And then this is a softer, more of a rubbery type plastic, so it's going to dampen some of that sound for you, and you'll hear those differences. Alright, so let's get started. The first one I'm going to demonstrate here is this Rocky Mountain Mistress, and then right after that I'm going to show you the Phelps Estrus call here, the EZ Estrus. Put these two side by side so you can hear the difference. There's quite a difference between these two, so I'll show those to you. Now the Phelps. Alright, so there's those two. Pretty big sound difference. One's more of a kind of more of that nasally sound, and one's more of an open mouth type sound on this Mistress here. Alright, so next let's do a couple more side by side. This is the Rocky Mountain Voodo. This is more of a cow-calf type sound, and this is the Mini X by Phelps. So I'm going to show you these two side by side so you can hear the difference for yourself. First we've got the Rocky Mountain. Now the Mini. So again, you can notice the tone difference because you've got a wooden call here in the Phelps Mini and a plastic or acrylic type call in the Voodoo. Just different sounds, different purposes, more of a cow-calf. And then this one is more on the cow-calf side, but gives you that warmer tone as well. So preference on what you prefer there. They're both easy to use. Probably the Voodoo is a little bit easier to get the sound out of, but they're both real easy to use. Let's look at the next two. Alright, so the next two, we've got the native green Wienie and the Rocky Mountain Matriarch. These are obviously very different calls. One's plastic again and one's wood, but I want you to be able to hear the difference between the tone qualities in these two type of calls. This one again has a real thin reed, and this one's a little thicker, and is, of course, as the name designates, something that's supposed to give you a little bit more of that older cow sound. So first the green Wienie. Now the matriarch. All right, you can probably hear there's a big difference in sound between these two. The green one here is really easy to use. It's a great cow-calf type sound and a really easy one to get used to. The matriarch here is a little bit more difficult, but it does give you that older cow sound and really gives you that come here type call, that hanging on that low note if you're trying to tell a cow or a bull to come over to your location. It does really well with that sound. It's one of the best with that sounds. All right, next we're going to look at two of the offerings of Native by Carlton. We've got the loudmouth and the mini mouth. These are both a similar call. Of course, one's just going to be larger than the other, larger diaphragm or larger reed than the other. And as you can probably will be able to tell here in a second, the loudmouth is going to be a lot louder, give you more of an older cow sound, whereas the mini mouth is going to be a little bit quieter and give you that younger cow sound. So I'll show you those ones. So first, the loudmouth. And now the mini mouth. So you could definitely hear a tonal difference between these two. The mini mouth is a little more nasally, not quite as loud, gives you that younger sound. That loud mouth really does throw that sound out there. It is a really loud cow call. So something that you might want to have in your pocket if you need to really throw that sound out there. Let's look at the next two. All right, next two we're going to look at is the Mossback Widowmaker and the Primos Hyperlip Single. Again, these are two very different calls. I realize that, and we're putting them side by side just so you can hear some of the differences in the tonal qualities and some of these designs and what that means for how the tone of that sound comes out of each call. The thing about this Primos Hyperlip is you can run it this way, or you can take this off if you need to get more volume and take this tone converter off. So I'm going to show you both ways and then put these side by side. So first, the Mossback. Now the Hyperlip with the tone converter on. And with the tone converter off. Right, so that is those two side by side. You could probably hear that this Mossback is a loud call. It's the loudest of the bunch of all these calls that we're talking about. And then this one here, the Primos, can be about as quiet as you need it to be with that tone converter on there. It gives you, again, that same really nice tone quality if you're telling a cow or a bull that you want them to come to your location. That hanging on that low note does a really good job with that. But also you can pull that off just like that and get a lot of volume out of it if you need to. Let's look at the next two. All right, so the last two we're going to look at here is the Phelps Estrus, and this is in the wood version. We already looked at the acrylic version, and then the Native by Carlton. This is their custom. These are both fantastic calls as well. You're going to hear a little bit of tone difference between these two, and then we'll talk about how they operate and the differences in the way that you can use these. So first, the Phelps Estrus. And now the Native. Alright, so that's those two side by side. You can probably tell the Phelps has a warmer tone, whereas the native here, the custom, is a little brighter. Some of the operational differences here as far as using them, for me anyways, that the native is a little bit easier to get all kinds of sounds out of it. It's just a really slick and smooth call. The Phelps here is also a fantastic call. I found it just a little bit more difficult to get the range of sounds that I was looking for, but it has an awesome tone quality. They both do. They're both fantastic calls. I'll be using both of these this year for sure. Love these calls. So that's those two. Let's look at a couple more. So one of the things I wanted to do is highlight the difference between the wood barrel Estrus by Phelps and the acrylic barrel. It's just a minor difference, but you should be able to hear that and hear the difference between the two. So first, the acrylic. Now the wood. And acrylic again. And the wood. So again, that shows you the difference. It's a bit of a difference, not a huge difference, but the difference in the exact same call, one with an acrylic barrel versus a wood barrel. So again, a minor difference, but in the exact same call, it does make a little bit of a tonal quality difference. All right, so that's all the external reads we've got for you today. Don't forget, tune in for part 3, where we're going to go through a couple of bugle tubes and show you the differences between them. But hopefully this has helped you decide what you want to take in the field this next elk season, between the different styles and the different materials that are used, and hopefully it's going to help you out. Don't forget, check the description. You're going to see some links down there. Again, we'll see you next time.